My family hurt my child and expected me to stay silent. Instead, I took her to the hospital, pressed charges, and ended their perfect lives. I used to think family meant unconditional love. Then my 8-year-old daughter taught me what real loyalty looks like. 3 years ago, I drove Sophie to what I thought would be a harmless Sunday barbecue at my parents' home in Tacoma. My sister Julia was there, her husband Mark, the corporate lawyer Golden Boy, and their 3 angel kids. I'd baked cupcakes the night before, $12 worth of ingredients, and 2 hours after my night shift at the hospital. Sophie decorated them herself. By noon, the adults were drinking Chardonnay while the kids ran through the sprinklers. Sophie always tried too hard to earn their affection. She offered to share toys, said please and thank you, even complimented my mother's new dress. I saw the way Mom brushed her off. It all started over a cupcake. Julia's oldest, Ella, wanted the one with the rainbow frosting Sophie had saved for herself. When Sophie said softly, "That one's mine," Ella snatched the plate anyway. It flipped, splattering chocolate frosting down Ella's white sundress. The scream that followed froze the entire yard. Julia stormed over, grabbing Ella like she'd been mauled. "What did you do to my daughter?" she shrieked at Sophie. I stepped between them. "It was an accident." Ella tried to take her cupcake. Dad appeared with his beer, his face red. "You gonna let your brat talk back?" "Dad, she didn't." He jabbed a finger at me. "You never discipline that kid. I'll show you how it's done." Before I could react, he seized Sophie by the arm. She cried out, "Mommy, please!" I lunged, but Julia clamped onto my wrist. "She needs consequences, Clara. Let go of me." Dad dragged Sophie toward the porch, unbuckling his belt. My stomach dropped. "Stop! She's 6!" The first strike echoed like a gunshot. Sophie screamed. I fought to reach her, but my mother grabbed me, hissing, "Let your father handle it." Another hit, then another. 12 in total. I remember because the doctor later counted them. By the end, Sophie lay motionless in the grass, her sundress torn and spotted red. I ran, scooped her into my arms, and drove straight to St. Mary's Hospital. It was 3:42 p.m. when we arrived. The ER doctor took one look and called trauma code. They cut off her dress, documented every bruise, every welt. My hands were shaking as I signed consent forms. When Dr. Patel told me there might be internal bleeding, I thought I'd collapse. A social worker asked, "Do you want to press charges?" I said yes. Every single one. The police came within the hour. I told them everything. How my father hit her, how my mother and sister restrained me, how Mark stood there filming. When they saw the video he'd kept for protection, their faces hardened. That night, my father was arrested for felony child abuse. My mother and Julia for assault and unlawful confinement. Mark for obstruction. The trial went fast because the footage was undeniable. 12 strikes, a 6-year-old, my father's smirk when she stopped crying. The jury needed only 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts. He got 5 years in state prison. My mother and sister received 20 months each. Mark lost his law license and his 6-figure job at Brooks and Kendall. The local paper called them the perfect family torn apart. But justice didn't end there. My lawyer, Beatrice Cole, a 60-year-old legend with ice blue eyes, filed a civil suit. We won $910,000 in damages. My parents sold their house to pay. Julia's fancy SUV, Mark's country club membership, all gone. When Sophie woke up in the hospital that first night, she whispered, "Am I in trouble?" I told her, "No, baby. They are now." 3 years later, she's thriving. Plays soccer, laughs again. She remembers little, and I thank God for that mercy. Last spring, my mother called from an unknown number. "We lost everything, Clara. Can't we move on?" I said quietly. "You held me down while he beat her. There's no moving past that." Then I hung up. Sometimes I drive past their old house on 9th Avenue, now owned by a young couple with a toddler. I smile knowing a good family lives there now. They thought they'd teach my daughter a lesson. Instead, I taught them what happens when you hurt a child and expect silence. They lost their perfect lives. We found peace, and that's the only justice that ever mattered.